Welcome to Millennium Daytime Bulletin. I'm Shweta Simar from New Delhi and you are watching Millennium News Channel 24. Today I'm bringing you the latest updates from around the world. Let's begin with today's top headline. Ukraine say North Koreans took heavy casualty during weekend attack in Kursk region. Key Russian general killed in Moscow bomb blast claimed by Ukraine. Assad says he didn't plan to flee Syria according to presidency Telegram account. Justin Trudeau is facing a political crisis made worse by Donald Trump. China's weak consumption drags on economy as Trump tariff threat looms. US Embassy in Vanuatu suffers considerable damage as powerful quake strikes Pacific nation. Iran pauses controversial new dress code law. Tech gains drive US markets higher while Latin America faces sharp declines. University of Vermont wins first ever NCAA Division I National Championship. Bucks and Thunders to vie for NBA Cup championship following semi-final victories. Now let's look at the details. Ukraine said on Monday that North Korean soldiers fighting alongside Russian troops suffered heavy losses during fight at the weekend in the Russian region of Kursk. North Korean units that arrived in Kursk region last month was involved in assaults at the weekend near 3 villages, according to Ukraine Defense Intelligence Service. It added that some 30 North Korean soldiers were killed or wounded in the fighting and 3 had gone missing during clashes near the villages of Blakova, Vorzaba, and Martinovka. Close to the border, Pentagon spokesperson Major General Pat Ryder confirmed Monday that North Korean soldiers had suffered casualty in the Kursk region. We do not assess that North Korean soldiers have engaged in combat in Kursk with Russia alongside Russian forces, Ryder said. We do have indications that suffered casualties, both killed and wounded, are in terrible situation. Ryder declined to provide specifics on the number of casualties, but said they have been integrated into Russian units and are primarily being used in an inflationary role. They have begun to actively fight alongside Russia a little over a week ago, he said. As we have said all along, those forces are legitimate military targets for the Ukrainians, given that they are engaged in active combatant ops, he added. Separately, a Ukrainian fourth-line drone unit posted video on Sunday purporting to show the bodies of more than 20 North Korean soldiers lined up in an icy field. The quality of the video was not good enough to verify their identity. Other drones video geolocated by Millennium close to Plekovo showed soldiers appearing to retreat over the weekend, pulling some casualty on slats. But it was unclear whether they were Russian or Korean. One Russian unit reported that Korean wearing different uniforms from the Russians had launched infantry attacks using the same tactics as 70 years ago, in an apparent reference to the Korean War, where waves of infantry were used. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky said last month that North Korean troops deployed to Kursk had been involved in the combat, adding that clashes had resulted in fatalities. A top Russian general accused of using chemical weapons on the battlefield in Ukraine was killed after a bomb went off in Moscow early Tuesday. Russian investigators said in an attack swiftly claimed by Kiev, Lieutenant General Igor Kirillov, who headed Russia's nuclear biological and chemical protection forces was killed by a remotely detonated bomb planted in an electric scooter outside an apartment building some 7 kilometers, that is 4 miles southeast of the Kremlin. According to Russia's investigative committee, the blast came a day after Ukraine's prosecutor sentenced Kirillov in absentia for Russia's use of banned chemical weapons during its invasion. A source with knowledge of the operation later told CNN that Ukraine's security service, the SBU, was behind the attack. Kirillov was a war criminal and an absolute legitimate target as he gave orders to use banned chemical substances against the Ukrainian military. The sources told CNN that such an inglorious and awaits all those who kills Ukrainians. Retribution for war crimes is inevitable. Kirillov is the most senior military official known to be killed since Russia's launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine in February 2022. His assistant was also killed in the blast off the street. A UN team and CNN team on the ground saw blast marks at the entrance to a residential building cordoned off by the investigators. The bomb-packed explosive powers amounting to some 300 grams of TNT, Russian state news agency TASS reported. Russia's investigative committee has launched a probe into the attack, calling it a terrorist attack. Ukraine's SBU on Monday said that more than 4,800 cases of the chemical weapons have been on war since, particularly grenades equipped with irritant chemicals agent were used. Ousted Syrian President Bashar al-Assad's departure from the country was unplanned, according to a statement posted on Monday. The Syrian presidency Telegram account purporting to be Assad. The statement claims that Assad moved to Russia's airbase in Syria's Hamim on the morning of Sunday, December 8, and Russia asked him to evacuate with the base came under attack. It's unclear if Assad still controls the Telegram account. If the statement is authentic, it would mark the first time he was publicly commented on the event since his regime fell this month. My departure from Russia and Syria was neither planned nor it occurred due to final hour of the battle, as some have claimed. On the contrary, I remained in Damascus carrying out my duties until the early hours of Sunday, 8th of December 2024. The statement said from the Russian presidency account on the Telegram. The statement also claims Assad learned after he arrived at the Hamim air base that the last army positions had fallen. With no viable means of leaving the base, Moscow requested that the base command arrange an immediate evacuation to Russia on the evening of Sunday, 8th December. This took place a day after the fall of Damascus following the collapse of the final military position and the resulting paralysis of all remaining state institutions. The statement said, "At no point during these events did I consider stepping down or seeking refuge, nor was such a proposal made by any individual or party. The only course of action was to continue fighting against the terrorist onslaught," the statement added. Assad suggested that his position as president became void of purpose after the country was taken over by terrorists. When the state fails and falls into the hand of terrorism and the ability to make a meaningful contribution is lost, any position becomes void of purpose, rendering its occupation meaningless. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau soared to victory in 2015 on the promise of change and sunny ways for the country. Nearly a decade later, a dark storm cloud has descended upon his increasingly unpopular administration with the resignation of a top cabinet minister over a dispute above how to manage US President-elect Donald Trump's tariff threats. The abrupt exit Monday of the finance minister and longtime Trudeau ally Chrystia Freeland and her public rebuke of her boss stunned Canadians and threatened to further unravel the government of a country known for its stability. Trudeau already shaky hold on the country has now become more tenuous as pressure builds on him to step down. On Monday, Finance Minister Freeland quit her post hours before she was due to deliver an annual fiscal update. Her shock announcement came after Freeland said Trudeau had tried to demote her following a disagreement between the two politicians over how Canada was handling the threat of tariffs and the Trump. Canada, home to about 40 million people in one of America's largest trading partners and closest ally, Freeland, who was long been seen as a potential successor to Trudeau, said she and the Prime Minister had become at odds about the best path forward for Canada. In a resignation letter posted to the social media, she and Trudeau has disagreed in the recent weeks about a 2-month sales tax holiday and 250 Canadian dollars, that is $175 rebate for most workers, policies widely seen as tactics to win back voters. Our country today faces a grave challenge. The incoming administration in the US is pursuing a policy of aggressive economic nationalism, including the threat of 25% tariffs, Freeland said. China's industrial output growth quickened slightly in November while retail sales disappointed, keeping alive calls for Beijing to ramp up consumer-focused stimulus as policymakers brace for more US trade tariff under a second Trump administration. The mixed data underline how challenging it will be for China's leader to mount a durable economic recovery heading into 2025 when trade relations with China, biggest export market, could worsen while domestic consumption also stay weak. US President-elect Donald Trump's vow to impose tariffs exceeding 60% on Chinese goods could push Beijing to accelerate plans to rebalance its $19 trillion economy, analysts said. This comes after 2 decades of deliberate on transitioning from the current growth model focused on fixed asset investment and export to a consumption-driven one. China's industrial output in November grew 5.4% from a year earlier, faster than 5.3 pace seen in October. Data from the NBS National Bureau of Statistics showed on Monday beating expectation for a 5.3% increase in Reuters poll. However, sales, a gauge of consumption, grew at its weakest pace in 3 months at 3.0% last month, much slower than 4.8 seen in October. Analysts had predicted a 4.6 expansion. China's economic policy have been amazingly consistent in promoting manufacturers over consumer despite clear signs of lasting weakness, said Dan Wang, in a Shanghai-based independent economist. So one can expect production capacity to strengthen, potentially agitating the overcapacity issue and motivating Chinese companies to seek overseas market. Powerful 7.3 earthquake hit Vanuatu on Tuesday, sparking a network outrage, crushing vehicles and damaging multiple buildings, including a complex in the capital, Port Vila, that hosts the diplomatic missing and missions of Western nations, including the United States. The quake struck 30 kilometers, that is 18.6 miles west of the Pacific island nation capital, at about 57.1 kilometers deep shortly after noon, according to the United States Geological Survey, USGS. It was followed by a 5.5 aftershock with communication down. The official death toll was not immediately known, but at least least one person was killed, according to relief agency, citing preliminary reports from the ground and local media. The quake caused buildings to collapse, crushing cars, with some feared to be trapped under the rubble. Landslides occurred near an international shipping terminal at the Port Villa, blocking access, according to Reuters. Hours after the quake hit, crowds began to form outside a hospital waiting to be treated, according to the Associated Press, citing footage from the national broadcasters Vanuatu Broadcasting and Television Corporation, whose website had gone offline. Multiple social media videos geolocated by CNN showed damage to a red and blue building that houses and the US and the Western embassies. One section of the ground floor appeared to have partially collapsed, with the debris strewn around the US Embassy's crest and several windows shattered. The US Embassy in Port Villa has sustained considerable damage and is closed until further notice. A spokesperson for the US Embassy in Port Moresby, Papua New Guinea, told UNN and CNN, "Our thoughts are with everyone affected by the earthquake, and the US government will work closely with our partners in Vanuatu." The New Zealand Foreign Ministry confirmed to CNN that the building also houses its High Commission office and the embassies of France and the United Kingdom, saying it had substantiated significant damage. Iran's National Security Council has paused the implementation of the controversial hijab and chastity law, which has been due to come into force on Friday. President Masoud Pezeshkian called the legislation ambiguous and in need of reform, signaling his intention to reassess its measure. The proposed new law, which would introduce harsher punishment for women and girls for exposing their hair, forearms, or lower legs, had been heavily criticized by rights activists. The strict dress code imposed on women and girls, which have been treated as the national security priority by the rulers of the Islamic Republic of Iran for decades, have previously triggered protest. Under the new law, repeat offenders and anyone who mocked the rule would face heavier fines and longer prison sentences, up to 15 years in jail. It would also mandate that businesses report anyone who violates the rule. Human rights groups had expressed alarm. Amnesty International said Iranian authorities were seeking to entrench the already suffocating system of repression. During the presidential election in July, the candidate Pezeshkian openly criticized the treatment of Iranian women. Over the hijab issue, he promised not to interfere in their personal lives, a stance that resonated with many Iranians, especially for a younger generation frustrated by the government's rigid control. Masouba Ebtekar, a former vice president for Women and Family Affairs, also criticized the law, saying the new legislation is an indictment of half the women of Iranian population. Now bringing you the latest updates on today's market trends. In the United States, the S&P 500 gained 22.99 points to close at 6,074, reflecting a 0.38% increase as investor confidence in broad economic strength lifted equities. Leading the gains was the Nasdaq Composite, surging 247.17 points, that is 1.24%, to settle at 20,000. This rise highlights robust momentum in technology and growth stocks, which are continuing to outperform on hopes of lower interest rates and resilient corporate earnings. The Russell 2000, tracking small cap stocks, also saw an uptick of 15.1 points. However, the blue chip Dow Jones Industrial Average fell 110 points to 43,700, reflecting profit-taking among industrial and financial stocks. Volatility remained steady with the VIX climbing 2.5%, signaling lingering uncertainty amid mixed economic signals. North of the border, Canada's market were under great pressure. The S&P TSX Composite dropped 127 points and the S&P TSX 60 fell 7.94 points. Energy and financial weighed on Canadian equity. In Latin America, markets faced sharp losses. Brazil's Bovespa plunged 1,000 points close to 123 as weaker commodity prices and economic concern dragged the index lower. Mexico's S&P BNV IPC also in red, losing a substantial 770 points in to finish at 50,000, reflecting investor caution ahead of local policy developments. Meanwhile, Child's S&P remained flat at 6,700, showing no net change on the day. Overall, today's trading reflects a tale of two regions. The US market continues to find strength in technology and growth sectors, while Latin America grapples with economic headwinds and investor risk aversion. As global markets await further clarity on interest rates, inflation and growth, volatility will remain a key factor moving forward. Starting with energy, WTI crude oil dropped 0.60% to settle at $70 per barrel. Similarly, Brent crude oil fell 0.53 points to $73 per barrel. These declines reflect concerns over slowing global energy demand compounded by uncertainty surrounding the economic outlook and oversupply risk. Traders are keeping a close eye on OPEC's next move to stabilize prices. However, natural gas bucked the trend, rising 0.03 points. That is $3. Colder weather forecast and increased demand for heating across parts of the globe have supported prices, helping natural gas stand out as a bright spot in the energy sector. Switching to precious metals, gold slipped 16.10 points, that is $2,653 per ounce, while gold remains near historic highs. Today's decline suggests some profit-taking as investors weigh the possibility of substantiating inflation and shifting interest rate expectations. Silver also saw a sharp drop, down 0.36 points to $30, pressured by the broader weakness across the industrial markets. In agriculture, soybean dipped slightly by 0.01 points to $9 per bushel. The minimal decline highlights the commodity's relative stability amid the broader market volatility. Overall, today's commodity market reflects a cautious tone. Weakness in oil and metal underscores investor concern over global economic softness, while natural gas gains modest grounds on seasonal demand. Moving forward, market participants will keep a close watch on the central bank policies, energy inventories, and weather patterns as key factors shaping commodity price trends. We'll be right back after a short break. I'm Shweta Simar from New Delhi. Keep watching Daytime Bulletin.
Millennium TV, bridging communities worldwide. We broadcast diverse international content from Europe, Asia, Africa, and now right here in the USA. Watch us via Roku on your smart TV. Download the Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV.
Welcome back after the break. I'm Shweta Simar from New Delhi and you are watching Millennium Daytime Bulletin. The University of Vermont earned its first ever NCAA Division I national championship in a team sport in dramatic fashion on Monday. The unseeded Catamounts upset number 13 Marshall University 2-1 in overtime in men's soccer at Wakemed Soccer Park in Cary, North Carolina. Vermont was down 1-0 after Marshall senior forward Tariq Panholzer scored in the 67th minute. But the Catamounts showed their fighting spirits. Forward Marcel Papp drew the game level for the underdog in the 81st minute as the match would eventually go into overtime. In the extra period, Vermont forward Maximilian Kissel got a free on a long ball and scored a game winner. This is a place what I wanted to be. This is a place to win the national championship. This is the best team in the country. I'm just happy that we could prove it, Kissel said after the game. This is no Cinderella. This is no underdog. This is not luck. It's will. It's skill and talent. Both the Thundering Herd and the Catamounts knocked out two of the tournament's favorite in the semifinals to reach the cup final. Marshall blanked number 1 Ohio State 1-0 while Vermont came from behind to down number 3 Denver in penalties. Vermont also defeated number 2 Pittsburgh 2-0 in the quarterfinals and in the third team to oust two top 4 seeds in the same tournament the last decade. We are the toughest team, Vermont head coach Rob Doe said to rally back again. The Cardiac Cats, we did it. It's been really hard for everyone, but the best thing in life are also the hardest thing. Vermont, who was appearing in its first ever team sports national championship game, has won individual national titles in men and women's skiing. The NFL Week 15 concluded with the league's final Monday night football doubleheader of the season. The playoff-bound Minnesota Vikings easily defeated the Chicago Bears 30-12 for the 7th straight victory. The Vikings clinched a playoff berth Sunday following the Seattle Seahawks 30-13 defeat to the Green Bay Packers. Before Monday's game, former Vikings receivers Chris Carter and Jake Reed showed support for their former teammate Randy Moss by holding up his 84 jersey during the coin toss at the US Bank Stadium in Minneapolis. The fans chanted "Randy, Randy." Moss announced Friday he's being treated for cancer. Viking receiver Justin Jefferson also honored the Pro Football Hall of Famer in the first quarter. After a 7-yard touchdown catch from the quarterback Sam Darnold to give the Vikings a 10-0, Jefferson celebrated, saying to the camera, "We love you, Randy. That's for you." Moss posted on X, "Love you all. Let Moss cancer. I definitely wanted to give a tribute to him on the one of the touchdowns. It was just great to have it done in the first quarter and the first one." Jefferson said that about Moss' tribute while wearing her jersey after the game. Definitely got to show that love to him, a lot of gratefulness for what he has done for the game and what he has done for me as a kid. Just watching him, for being a fan of him, I always got to love tomorrow, the today, and the Vikings for the take on 13-0 halftime lead. In the second half, Minnesota added two 1-yard touchdown runs, one by running back Arson Jones in the third quarter of the other by running back by Cam Akers in the fourth to stretch the lead to 27-6. Darnold was 23-40 for 231 yards with a touchdown and interception. Jefferson had seen the reception for 73 yards and a touchdown. The Viking improved at 12-2 and aren't in the three-way tie with the Detroit Lions and Philadelphia Eagles for the best record in the NFC, and the beer dropped to 4-0. That's all for now. Thank you for tuning in. Stay with us for more updates. Log in to stay updated with the latest news on our social media platforms: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Millennium News 24. Don't forget to check out our YouTube channel, Millennium News 24. You can also watch us on Android and iOS devices, as well as on Apple TV, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, and all smart TV platforms. Enjoy entertainment and latest news with us. Download the Millennium TV apps, Millennium TV USA for Android and Millennium TV USA on Google. Thank you for being part of Millennium News 24.